Hello and good afternoon. My name is Stephen Hines and I'm an extension educator with the University of Idaho. I'd like to welcome you today to From the Ground Up, Cover Crop Solutions for Western Farmers, the second in a set of sub-regional conferences of the Western Cover Crops Council. So our next speaker is Nick Sirovatka, and he is with USDA NRCS in Oregon. Nick, welcome.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you everybody for joining and for having me here. So when I was asked to talk, it was really covering what is EQIP and how does it work. But I think maybe we need to talk a little bit about how NRCS works and how the programs work, and then what are some other opportunities that NRCS might offer that are out there that could be useful, could be beneficial, and are something that's available, and maybe we need to improve how we get the message out. So really, the NRCS push for soil health, the NRCS push for focusing on cover crop being a good vehicle for soil health promotion really started in 2012, 2013, and that's when this soil health push from the NRCS came about. And I really like this quote from Dr. Seuss: "You'll miss the best things if you keep your eyes shut." Really soil health and addressing the base problem instead of putting to steal somebody else's comment, putting a Band-Aid on the problem, looking at how we can address the root issue, how we can address soil loss, soil health, soil degradation, all of those different things. And before somebody puts a question about what is soil health and what is a healthy soil, that really does change as you go across the landscape, go across the land use. What one healthy soil isn't another healthy soil. So we acknowledge that, NRCS acknowledges that. I don't want to take away from the soil health push, but there's different levels and building blocks towards the journey of soil health, I guess. So keep that in mind, please. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the principles of soil health that NRCS has been pushing and promoting since 2013, since this campaign, this effort came online. And there's four major ones, and if you look at this screen, the one at the bottom is an add-in that is very important. Not everybody has the option and opportunity at this point, but it's something to work towards. And I think that is something that we need to keep in mind as we talk about building a healthy soil, building a healthier soil, building a more sustainable soil, is that we're on this journey. We're trying to get there. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's definitely not going to happen in 1 year or 2 years. So how do we get there? How do we work towards it? Keeping in mind these four principles is a good way to do that. Keep the soil covered as much as possible. One of the things one of the comments that I heard, if you like your soil, you shouldn't see it very much. And that really is true. Keeping the soil covered, disturbing it as little as possible. Again, if you're keeping it covered, disturbing it as little as possible, you're building that structure, building that microbiome for all of the soil biology, both vertebrate and invertebrate, and building that habitat that is going to promote and help with keeping healthy plants, healthy rotations, healthy soil, and keeping your soil in place. Keep the plants growing throughout the year to feed the soil. When we eat and finish our plate, clear our plate off, and then we don't eat for another little while. Well, soil biota, microorganisms, they also need to eat. They're using all of the sugars, all of the starches that are exuded into the soil from the roots. They're using and manipulating the carbon resources that are in the soil. They're eating, and if we keep the plants growing, we're keeping that smorgasbord, that buffet, open and alive for them. The fourth point is diversify as much as possible using crop rotation and cover crops. You know, farming in nature's example is another comment that has been made throughout this soil health push, soil health promotion. And, you know, not having monoculture fields, changing the root structure that's going down into the ground is going to feed, promote, and benefit different microorganisms in the soil. And that whole population is going to promote the health, promote the sustainability of the soil as you are on this journey of soil health. And then using livestock to promote biological activity. You know, if you have the opportunity to do it, that's great. You know, we just heard from Lauren talking about how cover crops and soil health efforts maybe are expensive. You know, this is one way that we can promote a little cash return to producers' pockets if they can figure out how to get the livestock in on top of the cover crops, and there's benefits to the soil as well as to the animals that are utilizing those cover crops. So, you know, I've talked about it. I won't harp on this slide very much, but cover crops really are a way that we can improve the soil. It hits, you know, a cover crop planting, if done correctly in a direct seed system, it hits all four of those main points that NRCS has been pushing, NRCS has been focusing on. You know, we need to follow those 4 points, and if we do, we can have the opportunity and the ability to build some soil organic matter, which typically will improve the soil. You know, if we have more organic matter in there, we have a better potential and a better opportunity for water holding capacity. And that is, you know, I work in the dry side of Oregon. I am out of Pendleton, Oregon, and there's a lot of dryland wheat acres running around me all the way up into Idaho and Washington that, you know, water matters, moisture matters. We have to pay attention and figure out how to make this work. And, you know, is it going to work in every system, every rotation, at every time that somebody wants it to? You know, the potential is that it probably is not going to work the same way for every operation and every opportunity, but that doesn't mean that we can't try it. And I think through Lauren's talk, when she was discussing the opportunities of EQIP, you know, EQIP is really one of those tools and devices that producers can utilize to try it. And that really is what the EQIP program is there for. I will not contradict Lauren, but I will maybe put an NRCS spin on one of the statements that she made multiple times, I guess. The NRCS cost share for the EQIP program is not necessarily a cost share. So when you come in and talk with your local soil conservationist, about cover crop, if that's an option and an opportunity, we are not cost sharing. We're not asking for receipts to come in the door, and we're not going to give you 50% of whatever you pay. When you come in to sign up for a cover crop contract, to, you know, go out and plant cover crops on your ground, you're going to walk out the door with a contract, and we tell you exactly for what the scenario you selected, you know, what planting you're going to do. Are you going to do diverse species? Are you going to try to do a monoculture? Are you going to ease into it? Or are you going to jump in the pool without looking at the depth of the water? You know, we will provide you a payment. So it really is an incentive. We are going to provide you incentive to try that. And really the way EQIP works is we're trying to change the mindset. We're trying to get people enough of an incentive that they are interested and willing to try that practice, try that change in their operation. But we're also not trying to make it so that when you get that payment and you have a contract for, let's say, 3 years, and at the end of 3 years your contract is over, we still want you to have embraced the opportunity of whatever that practice is. We're talking cover crops here, but embrace the opportunity of how that fits into your rotation and see the good things that happen through that management change, that practice implementation. And that's what we want to see happen. We want to see the practice carry on past the point that a contract with NRCS doesn't exist anymore. So back to the talk. You know, there's many resources that we need to think about and look at. NRCS and USDA, ARS, you know, we have developed some of these. Private companies have developed some of these, and there are some really neat tools out there, especially if you're looking at species selection. You know, there's some great tools that are free to use. You know, they're attached to a private company, but they're free to use, free to try, and at the back end, you know, if you like what you see and want the opportunity, you can even order seed from them. But as you're thinking about cover crop tools, as you're thinking about cover cropping, you know, you really need to consider and focus on what are your purposes for putting the cover crop in. Are you doing it just because NRCS said we'll give you X number of dollars for a cover crop? Do you want to grow some nitrogen? You know, are you going to put legume heavy mix into the ground, into your cover crop ground, and try to grow some nitrogen? You know, are you trying to keep your soil in place? Are you trying to get away from a weed or pest issue? You know, think of the purpose. And when you think of the purpose, you know, the species selection is going to kind of fall into your lap. Definitely not that easy, I'll say, but as you're thinking of the purpose, you know, what you're going to put in the ground is definitely going to come into play. When are you going to use it? How are you going to use it? How are you going to terminate it? And then somebody asked a question that I saw about policy, and you know, risk management agency governs and covers the crop insurance. And NRCS and RMA have been in conversation since this whole soil health push, cover crop push came about. And you know, in the 2018 Farm Bill, we did realize some additional freedoms. I won't say it has totally streamlined for the promotion and planting of cover crops in the Pacific Northwest. But we have seen some streamlining of the way we can provide opportunities and best farming practices. You know, we have to keep in mind and take a look at that. Keep in mind what our termination dates for the cover crop is. But you know, we need to pay attention to what the policy is, because as an NRCS employee, I don't want to prescribe something to one of the producers that I work with that puts them at odds with another aspect or another focus of their operation. And for many folks out in the Pacific Northwest, and you know, maybe we're at that 95% that we're trying to get to planting cover crops. You know, crop insurance is important. Crop insurance is something that they have to have. They're not able at this point to get away from crop insurance and the regulations. So that's something that we have to keep in mind and focus on. I kind of talked over the top of this one. You know, really, what is the cocktail that we're going to put in the ground? And again, it's what's our purpose? When we got our purpose, and you can have multiple purposes, what are we going to put in the ground? This is an example of one of the NRCS cover crop tools. This was created out of the Plant Materials Center, and it was a collaboration and cooperation between Idaho PMC, Washington PMC, and Oregon PMC. It's a great tool. It's modeled after you know, some of the other resources that are out there from private companies. The issue I think with this one right now that we're working on remedying is that it is access database, so there's a lot of download and computer issues that you may have, but it is available, it is out there, it is something that we can use, that you know, private individuals can use and look at. And it does cover and gives you some options and opportunities as you're looking at what is the purpose of your planting. You can type that right into the database, into the drop down, I guess. You won't type it in, but into the drop down. And it'll give you the option to, you know, focus on growing nitrogen, preventing pest issues. You know, lots of different options and resources. I didn't want to sit on top of this one for very long, but you know, it is available, and if anybody would like more information about it, feel free to contact me afterwards. So there has been questions and comments about states administering the conservation programs, and I am going to use conservation programs because, you know, CSP, Conservation Stewardship Program, is a pretty vehicle for looking at soil health practices, using cover crops, enhancing the cover crops that you're already using, and you know, using the whole package of conservation program offerings for the best or the betterment of your whole operation. So back to states can administer. You know, I think it's important to discuss how the programs are used, and I'll give an example from Oregon, because Oregon is pretty unique in the realm of the states across the nation. And NRCS Oregon actually is putting together what we call CISs, or Conservation Implementation Strategies. And so each county, each field office is going out and identifying a, air quote, problem, a resource concern that we want to address and attack, I guess, so that we can provide some solution with incentive to get there. And so we're writing these CISs, submitting them to our state leadership team. Our leadership team is actually looking at what that pie looks like from the EQIP dollars coming into the state, and then they're dividing it out and giving, you know, each county X number of dollars to administer the implementation strategy. So think about it as a grant program that internally NRCS Oregon is using. Now, other states don't do that. Other states, you know, they can administer their EQIP dollars in the manner that they best see fit, and some of them don't have that requirement. Most of them don't have that requirement to have that targeted and focused implementation strategy to address a resource concern. So, you know, how they move the money around, how it's addressed across the landscape, you know, the pie is only so big, and there's lots of programs, lots of resource concerns out there that we need to address, and it doesn't always the need doesn't always match the funds available. So that is why we have the application process, the ranking process. We have some new tools that we can do our rankings with, and we try to shake out what is the best project within that area or within that resource concern. What is that stack of best projects? But we're going to start at the top of that ranking and work down until we don't have any money left to fund any more contracts, and you know, go at it the next year if the availability is there for those dollars, and put some more dollars into addressing that resource concern. So I do know one of the questions was addressing CSP. So EQIP really is kind of the base or the building block of the programs, and you know, it has standards that you need to set up and administer the program to following the standards, and those standards are set at the national level, and then the states can look at it. The Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP, is a program that we utilize conservation dollars to further encourage adoption and advancement of the management systems on producers' farms. One of the questions was, you know, how does a producer figure out what's available and what's being offered through EQIP? When are the CSP application deadlines? When are the EQIP application deadlines? And that, you know, that can be found on your state's NRCS website. You know, usually the conservation districts, the soil and water conservation districts, they usually are pretty good about helping to promote the application deadlines and timelines. if you do business at the Farm Service Agency, you know, if you're involved in federal programs and you're doing crop reporting, most times FSA is co-located with NRCS offices. So every time you go in and talk to FSA, every time you go in and do a crop report, stop by your NRCS office. And I know this is a difficult time to just stop by your NRCS office, but you know, hopefully someday soon we're out of the COVID era and can move back to having in-office conversations. But you know, stop in and see what's available. And the other thing that I would encourage folks to do is go to your local work group meetings. Almost every office, every county is going to have a local work group meetings that are trying to help set and drive what are the needs of the producers in their area. You know, what programs and how do we manipulate the programs to give the best benefit to the producers that we work for the resource concerns in our area. Go to those local work group meetings and be vocal about, this is what I need, this is what I want, and by golly, I'd really like to participate in an NRCS program. So, you know, we do have multiple options and opportunities. EQIP that Lauren was talking about, that's one of the options. That's kind of the base option, but we also have the Conservation Stewardship Program. And that covers, you know, multiple enhancements across the whole landscape or the whole farm operation. So, you know, let's say cropland is a small component and you run livestock on rangeland. We have an enhancement for that. You know, we have a program that will fit into that. Let's say you have forest acres and you're curious and want to enhance or want to provide some benefit to your forest acres. We have a program for that. So go in and talk to your NRCS office in your county. So again, back to the standard or the EQIP practice, that is the base building block. And so both the practices and enhancements have standards. We have the fact sheets to those practices and to those standards. And the way they come about is the national office will develop and polish the statement of work, the standard for the practice, and then the implementation requirement sheet. And then they go back out to the states, and the states have the ability to look at those national templates and say, can we add something that is going to further benefit or something that we need to further address in our state that is going to make them work better here. And so, you know, the national produces the template through conversation with multiple groups, multiple levels of evaluation. You know, does this make sense? Is this how it is best applied on the ground? And then sends it out and the states look at it, and then the states adopt their version of, they don't have to change the standard, they don't have to change the implementation requirements, but most times they will look at it and make sure that it fits into their production system. So at the start of this, you know, I talked about Dr. Seuss, and the funny thing is, with an open mind, people are going to come along and try to put things into it. You know, this soil health push really has been an effort to create change and to make change. And I love this quote: if you want to make small changes, change how you do things. If you want to make major changes, change how you see things. Is cover crop going to fit in every time in every situation? No, I don't think anybody is here or is going to tell you cover crop is always going to be the answer in every situation. But can it fit in? You know, that's something that you need to think about, those major changes, and change how you see things, change how you see things on your farm and in your area. And once you do that, you know, maybe cover cropping is something that you are willing to try, and NRCS can provide you a little incentive to get there. But I'll stop and turn it back over to Steve. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nick.